What's going on, guys? I'm Andrew, and this is Movie Source. Today we're going to be going over 37 Easter eggs, references, and trivia from the 2003 film Daredevil Director's Cut. Hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Alright, starting off. In the movie, Matt's father, played by David Keith, is nicknamed Jack the Devil Murdoch. In the comics, he is nicknamed BATTLIN Jack Murdoch. In the film, Matt runs into an industrial area where a forklift accidentally damages a container filled with toxic waste that falls on his face. In the comics, Matt saves an elderly blind man from being run over by a truck, but a radioactive isotope fell out of the truck and struck Matt in the face. The bodyguard next to Fallon at the fight is Kane Hodder, who played mass killer Jason in the Friday the 13th series many times. In the original comics, Matt's father Jack won the fixed boxing match and was murdered that night when Matt was in law school. While in the movie, he was murdered sometime after Matt became blind while he was 12 years old. Additionally, in the original Marvel universe, the Kingpin was not involved with Jack Murdoch's death, though in the Ultimate Universe he is. And the name of the criminal for whom Jack worked was Roscoe Sweeney, aka the Fixer, while the movie has him working for a mob boss named Fallon. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's cousin and stunt double on all of his films, Tanai Reed, is in the bar fight scene at the beginning of the film. He is the one who says to Jose Quesada, "Boss, what's up with that? Is that guy for real?" Matt Murdock's breakup phone message from Heather is a reference to Heather Glenn from the comics, Matt Murdock's girlfriend during Frank Miller's first run on the Daredevil comic book. Murdock and Heather broke up near the end of that run. The character Heather, who we just mentioned that left a breakup voicemail on Matt Murdock's answering machine, is voiced by Colin Farrell's sister Claudine. She also would go on to marry the director of this film, Mark Steven Johnson, who also directed Ghost Rider, and they married 17 years after the release of this film in 2020. Claudine appears in another scene during the film when Bullseye is getting his money from the man in the bar. She is standing right next to the man who owes her brother, Bullseye, money. She was also the on-set assistant of the film. In the director's cut, Matt lies to Foggy saying that he's in The Fight Club, a movie that was directed by David Fincher. Ben Affleck would later star in Gone Girl, which was also directed by David Fincher. Foggy mentions to Matt, "Speaking of bills, your client Mr. Lee made his first payment." This is a reference, of course, to the great Stan Lee. Jennifer Gardner wore green contact lenses over her brown eyes for her role as Elektra. Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in 1967, which was the issue Spider-Man No More, which heavily influenced Spider-Man 2 of Sam Raimi's trilogy. It wasn't until Daredevil number 170 in 1981, when Frank Miller was writing, that he tangled with Daredevil, and since then he became a major part of the Daredevil comics. Michael Clark Duncan was often put on lifts or boxes to make him tower over everyone else, particularly in scenes with Ben Affleck, who was 6'4". The same thing was done for Duncan in The Green Mile. Nicholas Nachios' name in the original comics is Hugo Nachios. Additionally, while the film portrayed him as a billionaire with connections to organized crime, the comics portrayed him as a Greek ambassador. His time of death in the comics occurred before Matt Murdock had begun his vigilante activities as Daredevil, which was during the Frank Miller run. Coolio plays Dante Jackson in the director's cut of this film. He was also in one scene of everyone's favorite comic book film, Batman and Robin. In the director's cut, a policeman, Officer McKinsey, commits perjury on the stand. While Daredevil's senses allows him to detect perjury, since people's hearts tend to beat faster when not telling the truth, and heightened senses allows one to detect the heart beating faster, the policeman's perjury receives a false negative, for the simple reason that the policeman had a pacemaker in his heart, which regulated his heartbeat. A similar incident happened in Daredevil number 184, where a man with a pacemaker also received a false negative. The character of Turk, mentioned by Coolio in the director's cut, is a reference to the comic book character Turk Barrett, where he is a reappearing character, mostly during Frank Miller's run, and he would also appear in the 2015 run of the Netflix series. Bullseye killed Nicholas Nachios almost the exact same way that he killed Karen Page in the comics in Daredevil number 5 back in 1999. Although instead of Nicholas being killed by one of Daredevil's billy clubs, like in the movie, his own stick is actually meant for Daredevil himself, and Karen jumps in front of it at the last minute and is killed almost instantly. In their fight scene, Jennifer Gardner accidentally kicked Ben Affleck so hard in the head that he briefly blacked out. The lines spoken by Bullseye when he kills Elektra are taken verbatim from the original comic book. When Elektra is stabbed by Bullseye, his blade doesn't pierce the back of her outfit. This was a nod to the original comic Daredevil number 181. Marvel could not show a blade piercing a body and still have the issue approved by the Comics Code Authority. The artist got around it by showing the blade pushing the back of her outfit up, letting the audience know that she had been stabbed without actually showing it. At the end of the final confrontation with the Kingpin, Daredevil says, "Justice is served." This is the catchphrase of another Marvel comic character, the enigmatic vigilante Scourge, who would use the same line after murdering Marvel villains. When Matt mistakes a woman for Elektra, the actress is played by Jennifer Gardner's stand-in, Nancy Wetzel. In the closing scenes, Daredevil calls himself a guardian devil, the title of a Daredevil storyline running Daredevil Volume 2, numbers 1 through 8, written by Kevin Smith, who plays lab assistant Jack Kirby in this movie. As these words are spoken, Daredevil is shown upside down in midair with his baton string surrounding him, replicating one of the covers in that series. Ben Affleck was virtually blind as he had to wear heavy-duty contact lenses which blocked out most of his vision. Method acting to the limit, Ben. Stan Lee disliked this film because he felt that the film was too tragic. Matt Damon turned down the lead role as he didn't have enough faith in the script or the director. This is the first time Colin Farrell ever used his own Irish accent in an American movie. Ben Affleck would later go on to play Batman in Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Justice League, and David Ayer's Suicide Squad, release the Ayer cut. And Colin Farrell is playing the Penguin in The Batman. In some alternate reality that Barry Allen runs to, you can say that this film has Batman and Penguin in it. Also, during the fight between Bullseye and Daredevil in the church, we see bats come out of the organ, which is a foreshadowing of Ben Affleck playing Batman in the future. While working on this movie, actor and director Jon Favreau began discussions with Marvel over what would eventually become Iron Man, which of course is the first film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As a fan of the character, Ben Affleck made a point of reading every single comic book that featured Daredevil as preparation for his role. Composer Graham Ravel, one of my favorite composers, especially his score on The Crow, incorporated sounds to use as motifs for certain characters. For instance, Bullseye has guitar undertones while Kingpin has bass beats. The film pays homage to numerous Daredevil writers and artists. Stan Lee, Daredevil's original creator, makes his cameo as the man who young Matt Murdock stops from crossing the street. He wrote Daredevil from 1964 to 1969. Kirby, the lab assistant played by Kevin Smith, pays homage to comic book artist Jack Kirby, who assorted Daredevil comics from 1964 to 1968. Father Everett pays out homage to Bill Everett, Daredevil's original artist, drew his first issue of Daredevil in 1964, then assorted covers from 1966 to 1972. Jose Quesada, the rapist, pays homage to Joe Quesada, editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics and artist of Daredevil from 1998 to 2000. Colin, a boxer, pays homage to Gene Colan, another Daredevil artist from 1966 to 1974. John Romita, the boxer against whom Jack Murdock is supposed to take a dive in the film, pays homage to John Romita Sr. Sr. was a Daredevil artist in 1966, and John Romita Jr., his son, was a Daredevil artist from 1988 to 1990. Kane, a thug, pays homage to Gil Kane, who was a Daredevil cover artist from 1971 to 1978. Miller, Mack, Bendis, the other boxers that Fallon named as working for him, pay homage to Frank Miller, writer and artist of Daredevil from 1979 to 1983, and he plays the biker that Bullseye kills with a pen to his head and then steals his motorcycle. David Mack, artist from 1999 to 2001, and Brian Michael Bendis, writer of Daredevil starting in 1999 and was still doing so when the film came out. The core storyline was based on Frank Miller's story arcs. The introduction and flashback was taken from his miniseries, Daredevil Man Without Fear, and many of the sequences follow John Romita Jr.'s artwork shot for shot. The Elektra storyline occurred in Miller's original run on the comic in the early 1980s. Although the Marvel characters Daredevil and Spider-Man often work together in the comics, it was decided that all reference to the latter character had to be removed, since the licenses were given to separate film companies. This includes the decision that the Kingpin, one of Spider-Man's biggest enemies, would never appear in the Spider-Man film franchise, and that reporter Ben Urich, who often works with Peter Parker, would not work for the Daily Bugle. Michael Clark Duncan would nonetheless reprise the role of Kingpin for the animated Spider-Man series in 2003, since the television rights did not have the same divide. In the comics, Bullseye wears a blue and white costume. This wasn't used in the film, in keeping with its realistic tone, although at some point in the film he tells Fisk that he wants a costume, although he's never seen in one. Vin Diesel was considering playing the part of Daredevil, but opted for the Chronicles of Riddick instead. Ironically, in that film, his character Riddick possesses visual enhancements. Diesel would later go on playing Groot, another Marvel character in the Guardians of the Galaxy film series, part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The opening shot of the film is a direct recreation of Joe Quesada's cover art for Daredevil Volume 2, Number 3, depicting Daredevil clinging to a cross atop a church roof. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Let us know in the comment section if we missed out on any Easter eggs, references, or trivia, and also let us know which one we went over that was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, we'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button and share this video. We will be posting our Easter eggs video for Spider-Man 2 soon. Until then, see you guys next time.